The whole thing is just carefully laid on the space frame, and the result is striking.
His head turns, but his conversation continues. Gurdjieff talked about the ability for the three centres to work together to maintain a continuity of work, and that'll be the first passage that I read from Mr. Gurdjieff. Hello and welcome, wherever you may be on the planet Atlantis. I hope you're well this week. Clearly the whole planet is in incredible strife, and I will do what little I can to try and communicate a higher wisdom. And that'll be the first passage. Along with that one, I've got another passage which describes why the ability of human beings to see the living force is hampered by the functional limitations of the ordinary state of human functioning. I'm going to talk about the false self, in which ways it is and in which ways it isn't false. It's very important. And then I will talk about having zero mind and look at Siddhara Meshwar and Advaita. For those of you that don't know, Gurdjieff described the functionality of a human being to be split into three planes. The physical plane, or what he called the moving center, the emotional plane, a world of feelings, and our intellect and its related functions. Each center has its own memory, its own associations, its own thinking. As a matter of fact, each center has different sides within itself, and self-observation will very quickly show us that our mental life is much richer than we may imagine, or in any case that it contains more possibilities than we would imagine. At the same time, as we watch the work of the centers, we shall observe, side by side with their right working, also their wrong working, that is, the working of one center for another, the attempts of the thinking center to feel, or to pretend that it feels, and the attempts of the emotional center to think, the attempts of the moving center to think and feel. One center working for another is useful in certain cases, for it preserves the continuity of mental activity. But in becoming habitual, it becomes at the same time harmful, since it begins to interfere with right working by enabling each center to shirk its own direct duties, and to do not what it ought to be doing, but what it likes best at that moment. In a normal healthy man, each center does its own work, that is, the work for which it was especially destined and which it can best perform. There are situations in life when the thinking center alone can deal with and can find a way out. If at this moment the emotional center begins to work instead, it will make a muddle of everything, and the result of the interference will be most unsatisfactory. In an unbalanced kind of man, this substitution of one center for another goes on almost continually, and this is precisely what being unbalanced means. The emotional center working for the thinking center brings unnecessary nervousness, feverishness, and hurry into situations where, on the contrary, calm judgment and deliberation are essential. The thinking center working for the emotional center brings deliberation into situations which require quick decisions and makes a man incapable of distinguishing the peculiarities and the fine points of position. Thought is too slow. It works out a certain plan of action and continues to follow it even though the circumstances have changed and quite a different course of action is necessary. Besides, in some case the interference of the thinking center gives rise to entirely wrong reactions because the thinking center is simply incapable of understanding the shades and distinctions of many events. events that are quite different for the moving center and for the emotional center appear to be alike to the mental center. The mental center's decisions are much too general and do not correspond to the decisions which the emotional center would have made. This becomes perfectly clear if we imagine the interference of thought and the theoretical mind in the domain of feeling or of sensation or of movement. In all three cases, the interference of the mind leads to wholly undesirable results. The mind cannot understand the shades of feeling. If we imagine one man reasoning about the emotions of another, he is not feeling anything himself, so the feelings of another do not exist for him. And a man with a full belly does not understand a man with an empty one. But for the other, his hunger is very real, and the decisions of the first, that is of the mind, can never satisfy him. In exactly the same way, the mind cannot appreciate sensations. For the mind, sensations are as if dead, nor is it capable of controlling movement. Instances of this kind are the easiest to find. So you can see a little bit of that in the clip with Iain Tyrrell, who, by the way, has a very good YouTube channel. Gurdjieff sometimes said that exceptional efforts were required. Exceptional interrelation of the centers. And that also means an exceptional fusion of centers, which is very rare in this world. Maybe master craftsmen, if they continue to work with their hands and not pay employees to do the work, maybe they will reach an exceptional fusion. And that is the kind of thing you learn, or you should be learning, when you practice Tai Chi, ballet, and other arts that combine the centers together in a fine way. And that is a very satisfying and beautiful thing to do, because you feel the power of your body intertwined with your passions and the intellect which is required to understand the complex movements. Understanding, of course, that the classes for the Gurdjieff movements only exist in a small number of locations on the planet, and unless you are lucky enough to have one near you. I was walking back from the cafe on the weekend and I was thinking to myself, 12 baskets? Wasn't it 12 baskets in that story in the Bible? And suddenly an explosion went off in my head. And before I read that passage, I will go back to Gurdjieff's description of the subtlety of receiving the third force. The teaching of the three forces is at the root of all ancient systems. The first force may be called active or positive. The second, passive or negative. The third force, neutralizing. But understand these are merely names, for in reality all three forces are equally active and appear as active, passive and neutralizing only at their meeting points. That is to say, only in relation to one another at a given moment. The first two forces are more or less comprehensible to man, and the third may sometimes be discovered either at the point of application, or in the medium, or in the result. But speaking in general, the third force is not easily accessible to direct observation and understanding. The reason for this is to be found in the functional limitations of man's ordinary psychological activity and in the fundamental categories of our perception of the phenomenal world, that is, in our sensation of space and time, resulting from these limitations. People cannot perceive and observe the third force directly any more than they can spatially perceive the fourth dimension. but by studying himself, the manifestations of his thought, consciousness, activity, his habits, his desires, and so on, man may learn to observe and to see in himself the action of the three forces. Let us suppose, for instance, that a man wants to work on himself in order to change certain of his characteristics, to attain a higher level of being. His desires, his initiative is the active force. The inertia of all his habitual psychological life, which opposes that initiative, will be the passive force. The two forces will either counterbalance one another or one will completely conquer the other, but at the same time it will become too weak for any further action. Thus the two forces will, as it were, revolve around the other, one absorbing the other and producing no result. This may continue for a lifetime. A man may feel desire and initiative, but all the initiative may be absorbed in overcoming the habitual inertia of life, which leaves nothing for the purpose he had intended. And so it may go until a third force makes its appearance in the form, for instance, of new knowledge, showing at once the advantage of work on oneself. And then his initiative, with the support of this new element, may conquer the inertia and the man becomes active in the desired direction. Examples of the action of the three forces and the moments of entry of the third force may be discovered in all manifestations of our psychic life, in all phenomena of the life of human communities and of humanity as a whole, and in all the phenomena of nature around us. But at the beginning it is enough to understand the general principle. Every phenomenon, of whatever magnitude it may be, is inevitably the manifestation of three forces. One or two forces cannot produce a phenomenon, and if we observe a stoppage in anything, or an endless hesitation in the same place, we can say that, in the given place, the third force is lacking. I think it's probably easiest to notice a change in tempo. For instance, in the European Union, they have one meeting and then another meeting, and they announce another meeting and then another meeting. This is revolving around each other. But I know that being in real schools and having been taught, being put through my paces and trying really hard to learn, I was made to feel the third force. There's no way to understand these things. There's no way to really learn anything on your own. Unfortunately, behind many modern people, you often hear them say, of course you would never go to anything that is organized, like an organized religion. Of course we're all teachers and we can all do it at home by reading books. This is false. This is bullshit, and nobody in the Western civilization ever thought this before World War II. But that idea that you have no teacher because you can invent it out of the sky, and that the acorn does not come from the oak tree, is a sickness that entered into Western people after the Second World War. This story from the Gospels about the 5 loaves. And Jesus, when he came out, saw many people, and was moved with compassion towards them, because they were as sheep not having a shepherd. And he began to teach them many things. And when the day was now fast spent, his disciples came unto him and said, This is a desert place, and now the time is far past. Send them away, that they may go into the country round about, and into the villages, and buy themselves bread, for they have nothing to eat. He answered and said unto them, Give ye them to eat. And they said unto him, Shall we go and buy 200 pennyworth of bread, and give them to eat? He saith unto them, How many loaves have ye? Go and see. And when they knew, they say, 5 and 2 fishes. And he commanded them to make all sit down by companies upon the green grass, and they sat down in ranks by hundreds and by fifties. And when he had taken the 5 loaves and the 2 fishes, he looked up to heaven and blessed, and brake the loaves, and gave them to his disciples to set before them. And the 2 fishes divided he among them all. And they did all eat, and were all filled. And they took up 12 baskets full of the fragments and of the fishes, and they that did eat of the loaves were about 5,000 men. And straightway he constrained his disciples to get into the ship, and to go to the other side before Bethsaida, while he sent away the people. And when he had sent them away, he departed into a mountain to pray. And when even was come, the ship was in the midst of the sea, and he alone on the land. And he saw them toiling and rowing, for the wind was contrary unto them. And about the 4th watch of the night he cometh unto them, walking upon the sea, and would have passed by them. And when they saw him walking upon the sea, they supposed it had been a spirit, and cried out. For they all saw him, and were troubled, and immediately he talked with them. And he saith unto them, Be of good cheer, it is I, be not afraid. Okay, the false self. Let's talk about it. It seems to have been since ancient times that people thought that our mind was false, our thoughts was false, the world was false. I mean, it's really maddening, and it's been going on for a very long time. But reflecting on this weekend, is your body false? Would you consider your body to be false? For instance, if you came to the park with me and I showed you some Tai Chi, would you do it? You probably wouldn't be able to do it because it takes years to learn. In other words, your body does not do what you want it to do yet without a lot of training. Without really a lot of training. You have to train the outside, the inside, the coarse and the subtle. You have to train the smooth rhythms, the long rhythms, maybe used for cycling. But when you use a sledgehammer, you're using your body in a different way, a staccato rhythm. There are many things to learn with the body, and with the feelings, and with the mind. And are those pieces yours? Most people would say, of course they're mine. But they're not really yours because you haven't taken ownership of them, because you haven't trained them, you haven't enjoyed them, you haven't gone into them. Bear in mind that people don't have all the hours in the day to do these things. They've got to pay the mortgage and so on. But it's the same for all these voices in their head. You see, it's the same thing. You say they're false because they don't respond to you. They've got a mind of their own. Well, doesn't your crotch have a mind of its own? Doesn't your body have a mind of its own? Everything has a mind of its own unless you take ownership of it. Same thing. The difference is that the voices in the head can be particularly disturbing, but then again, your feelings can be particularly disturbing. And when your voice is in the head, they're disturbing you. Often it's with feelings. Anger, sadness, anxiety, and so on. If anybody wants a quick answer, all the answers are in what I've just said. The answers for the whole of our civilization. However, even if you accept what I say, it is very difficult to work with these things. One last passage from Gurdjieff on feelings, the ability of feelings to express stories and larger ideas, even without words. People not understand about learning. He went on. Think necessary talk all time, that learn through mind, through words. Not so. Many things can only learn with feeling, even from sensation. But because man talk all time, use only formulatory center, people not understand. What you not see other night in study house is that Miss Madison have new experience for her is poor woman. People not like. People think she funny, they laugh. But other night people not laugh. Miss Madison feel uncomfortable, feel embarrassed when I give money, feel shame perhaps. But when many people also feel for her sympathy, pity, compassion, even love, she understand this, but not right away with mind. She feel for the first time in life sympathy from many people. She not even know then that she feel this, but her life change. Says Rameshwar. Yes, when there is talking in the head, it is disturbing and it splits you. Suddenly there is not just the world, but a reflection of the world that is talking. It's not just the talking. The presence of one of the many eyes brings with it a reflection of the world and second sense of the world that interferes with I and thou, with me and the world. There is something else there. And there should be zero mind. To get from here to zero mind is a long journey. You must remove the poison that has affected your mind. And over time, what you do repeatedly makes you more experienced. Everyone has the habit of speaking about sense objects. Drop that habit and speak about the wisdom of Brahma. In that way, by constantly thinking of that, you will become Brahman. You should spend your time discussing spiritual knowledge. When you talk of sense objects over and over again, you only become more worldly. The aspirant for self-realization should keep relatives and friends close who are interested in these subjects. Do not waste your life talking with others. And it is rare luck to have relatives who are devotees. If you have no self-knowledge, what would be the use of these worldly activities? And the advice given by saints who are our real relatives is directly applicable to daily living, because that advice is a dialogue in wholeness. The Master who shows us the path of liberation is our real relative. And one should tune oneself like the tightening of the strings of a veena. If the instrument is rightly tuned, its sound will be resonant. Your relationship with the Master should be of that kind. He who helps himself is the truly lucky one. Evening, 20th of November, 1934. Thank you for listening.
the sun, the fall in the night. Garota brasileira dancing into the daylight. De swing e rebolado, don't know how but I try to. Seu jeitinho, your carinho, something that I'd fly to. Quer saber de onde sou? Brasileira, meu amor, Brasil. Quer saber de onde sou? Brasileira, meu amor, Brasil. A tambourine in the rhythm of samba. Oh, in the heat of December. Oh, Brazil is where I go. I think I've got a case of Brazilian soul. I'll always remember. Oh, in the heat of December, when we let our hearts grow close. Drinking coffee with a capoeira. From New York to Pará, Atlanta to Paraná, São Paulo, Tocantins, Miami and the in-between. Quer saber de onde sou? Brasileira, meu amor, Brasil. Quer saber de onde sou? Brasileira, meu amor, Brasil. A tambourine in the rhythm of samba. Oh, in the heat of December. Oh, Brazil is where I go. I think I've got a case of Brazilian soul. I'll always remember. Oh, in the heat of December, when we